in the spirit of staying one reading ahead of the class, I have to admit that I didn't do very well in studying up on my court cards, the page, the knight, the queen, and the king, which I forgot to include in the skeleton.
Knights are action. It's a speed.
Pardon?
Action.
Their actions?
Yeah, they're taking action.
We can
Yeah.
talk about that. Let's get
Like the
this
sword
lecture.
with thoughts.
Right. So, Stephanie, you have the Four of Pentacles. Okay, as a significator. Okay, but where you are now is the Page of Swords, which is you have a helper who's helping you get some new ideas, maybe, and maybe that's Kelly, who's giving you some guidance through cutting through some new ideas. Okay, that's what that may represent. And the challenge that you face is the Knight of Swords, which is,
You just said the Knight of Swords in the name.
well, the Knight of Swords would represent, someone that's trying to cut through, but maybe a little bit too fast, I would think.
That might be my boyfriend.
That might be your boyfriend.
That's what
Okay.
our boyfriends are.
Okay. All right.
Somebody's always chasing something.
Come on.
Okay.
We'll be chasing him soon.
Okay, Kelly. You ready?
Yes, sir, I'm ready.
All right.
She's so excited.
Okay.
Next.
So everybody's going to get a silk scarf for your
Absolutely.
tarot cards, right?
You really
Are you sure? Your final shuffle?
Okay. So Kelly's significator card is the King of Pentacles reversed, which means that you don't have a sugar daddy quite yet in your life. Okay, and where you are right now is the Emperor.
Congratulations.
Well, it's the Emperor because it's like that. It's reversed for you, which means that whatever masculine force you have in your life is
watch out for false sugar daddies.
yeah. Watch. Yeah, I guess that's a good way to do it. Very intuitive. Watch out for false sugar daddies, okay? Because he's reversed too. And the challenge that you face is the Empress, which would suggest that there's a woman in your life that is a challenge to you achieving what you need to achieve. So, yeah. Pardon?
It feels so accurate.
Ah,
It's
yes.
my intuition. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a powerful experience for me too because I haven't done readings in a while. So,
So you're good at it, though. It's good.
Is that intuition, right?
okay, John, you're up.
There you go.
Now it comes out.
Okay. Cut the cards.
Now we'll understand that King of Wands.
Yeah.
Okay, so John's significator is the Knight of Swords. So John is cutting through. So this is John's significator. and it was right side up
Like John,
as to
actually.
John. So John is cutting through the BS here. Okay. And where you're at right now, what you're going through right now, is the Four of Pentacles reversed, which is trying to figure out how the money works, maybe, in your life. And the challenge that you face is the Page of Swords, which is somebody's helping you cut through, but I don't know. I don't know if it's reversed or not, because let's say it's not reversed. But the challenge you face is to understand that whatever helper you're using, and that helper could be these cards, may not be so helpful. That's the challenge, and you have to decide. Okay, now do I do me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I will do me too. This has been spooky, though, I must say. But the penultimate class of this will do a group Celtic Cross reading. And then everyone will say what it means to them. Okay?
That's deep.
That is deep. But it'll be one reading for everybody in the group, and everybody can talk
That's
about.
your audience with the cards.
Yeah, it's the same idea as the auditorium. Okay, my significator is strength. Not bad,
Yeah.
since I feel like that's kind of right. Okay, and what I'm going through right now is the Knight of Swords. I'm
Wow.
cutting through the bullshit.
Nice.
And that's so appropriate, and we can't say why, but it is really appropriate, right?
Yeah.
And what my challenge is, yes, of course it is, the Tower.
Yeah, the tower.
Big change.
Burn card.
Yeah, which this is my challenge is,
Interesting.
yeah, so that's really on. Okay, that's a scary set of cards you have there, John.
Well, I
Skip,
have
you
all.
look a little shaken.
You could pull a helper card for that tower.
I don't need it.
You don't need it?
I remember my
Or a
significant.
clarifier.
No, remember my significator was strength, but okay, we'll pull a helper card, the Page of Pentacles.
Yeah. Message about money.
Something will
Fortune
happen.
and abundance
Yeah.
coming to you.
Yeah, the significator is just, setting the stage for the reading. It's not really a part of the reading.
Like a theme, kind of?
Pardon?
Like a theme or an idea?
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of where you are, but
It focuses on that aspect of yourself.
yeah. Okay, that's a good way to put it. It focuses on that aspect of yourself. So the significator. So my significator card was strength, and obviously I've had to have a lot of strength in what I've been going through the last 7 years. And wow, that was right on.
Yeah, mine was right on too.
Yeah.
So I have all of your energies now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Feels like
I
You
think
might want to put them in a locked box tonight. They might.
Spontaneously
They
combust.
might,
so.
they might find you in the morning with cards all over you, suffocated by
Better not
that.
carry them on the airplane.
No.
So let's just, before we quit for the night, let's go around the table and ask each one of you to say what has come out of this discussion this evening for you. And then next week, so today we've talked about the skeleton, okay? Next week we'll talk about the flesh and bones. And then the following week we'll do some serious readings, okay, based on the different layouts, just for demonstration purposes, okay? And we'll make the penultimate reading being the Celtic Cross for the group, okay? But, so, Bill, what did you learn, if anything, tonight?
Well, I got to thinking about, well, if you've ever gone to a reader, and like I think we went in New York, but anyway, they lay the cards out and they start talking, and they want you to talk back, and you know the feeling there is that they're trying to get stuff out of you so that they know what to say to you, to play you. But there's also the idea of like NLP, where when you've got someone and you're taking them down into a hypnotic state, where you begin, they've come to you with an issue, maybe it's their mother-in-law or something, and so you start trying to build a metaphor that could, in which they can construct a story, and so you're trying to get them to talk to you, and they will resolve the problem themselves. You can't do it. You have to give them a framework within which to. And so that's what it seems like. It almost seems like I could take the cards, get someone in a hypnotic state, and have a reading, and then just start talking through the cards, and they could fill in the blanks. And so that would be a good way to structure it. And in a way, that's what's happening anyway.
Right.
When you bring the other person in, rather than saying this is who you are, you're saying, well, why don't you tell me who you are? And you could draw them out with the cards. And I hadn't thought of the cards that way before.
Yeah, well, okay, one important point you made is that this is a hypnotic induction, okay, in the sense that when you give someone lots of things to think about, you're hypnotizing them. And so at some point, you can't think about all the parameters. This is what a hypnotist does. You can't think about all the parameters that a hypnotist is giving you. And so at some point you zone out, and then you're in your unconscious.
And that's called transderivational search.
Right, okay. Now, and then the other point was that you're giving someone a structure. I resist that idea as a reader. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not right for you. Okay, if you want to read for someone and you want to point.
Well, maybe structure is not the right word, but you're giving them, you're laying down metaphors that they can respond to.
Which is what you are doing, but I think that you're doing it without having a directed result.
Well,
Okay.
I don't think you could have a directed result, because you would have to come in already having thought of something. You're intuitive, and you're playing the cards yourself, like you do with your audience. You just start making up some sort of reading that they're attaching themselves to. That's really all.
Well, that's right. They attach themselves to it. But I think the minute the reader tries to direct a result, I mean, it's like, I would think
I
it's
agree
like
with that.
psychic therapy,
I agree.
psychotherapy, that the minute the therapist is trying to get you to think about this,
Well, that was
it won't be organic. It won't be something.
I think any artist would know that, because you're oftentimes leaving so much ambiguity in there, so people can go in and experience the artwork.
Right.
They're not looking for a didactic, explanation. They could go to a book for that.
I mean, so the way I think about it is, it's kind of like the collective unconscious and the unconscious connection that you have with the client. And I mean, every time I've done a reading, including tonight, the reading had tremendous impact. I mean, in terms of being true to the situation, and it had that because of the combination of me as the reader and the person as the client, and it involves both. And so, yes, I agree that the New York reader is probably trying to get say things that are connected to that person's life. But I think you start to run off the rails if you start to try to direct it, per se. I mean, the skeleton is there as a guide to you to know the things the parameters that you can talk about, like the parameter of time. If you have pentacles coming up, you can talk about the parameter of time. This is something that's happening over the next 20 years, or, if the Six of Pentacles comes up, you could say, well, this might happen sometime in the next 6 years. But, if it's the Six of Swords, it might happen in the next 6 days. I mean, you could say that because that's what the structure suggests. And it's like an astrology reading where you look at the astrology every day in the newspaper. I don't do this, but others do. And you remember the ones that really connect with you, right? And maybe that's twice a year that you say, oh my God, this person got me exactly right. And you forget all the other ones. And that's what happens in a tarot reading, which is if you say something that doesn't find a hook in the unconscious of the client, it's just going to fall away. They've had the hypnotic induction, and if the hook isn't there for something you say, it's just going to fall away, because the next sentence you'll say something where there is a hook, and they'll hook onto that. They'll forget the thing that you said that had no relevance. In your experience?
Say that last bit again. Sorry.
If you say something that the unconscious of the client doesn't connect with,
Right.
they'll just forget it. It
Yeah.
just goes away.
Exactly. Yeah.
But by synchronicity, some of the things that you say are going to hook. And it's those things that they connect to and that will be meaningful in the reading, right?
Yes.
Okay. So all this is secret knowledge. We're not telling you to use this information in a reading. We're telling you how to be a reader. Okay. Except for the basic meanings of the cards, which we're going to come back to next week. But Des, what did you take out of this?
Coming to this completely out of the gate, brand new. I guess I just had preconceived notions of what it meant, that it was trying to see the future, and it seems like it's more cutting the clutter to get to the meaning of what's already there, what's happening. And even if it's pointing you in a direction, I think all of us know when we're on a path pointing in a certain direction. So it's not really seeing the future, it's what we already know is there, but it helps push the weeds aside a bit.
Right, which we know unconsciously is already there. Okay. We know unconsciously that there's something there, but the cards dredge it up, give you an insight into what's in your unconscious. And you have to pay attention to your unconscious, because that's what's going to drive your life.
Can I just insert one thing real fast? I was just reading about the Four of Pentacles, and it said, apart from the wealth per se, the Four of Pentacles, interpreted as Jupiter in Capricorn, which I have, may suggest an unorthodox approach to religion. Oh, well. But anyway.
Right. Okay. Yeah, in fairness, there is a whole astrological dimension of the cards, too. I have never spent any time studying astrology, and so I don't really know anything about that dimension. And so to the extent that you listen to this video you're not hearing me talk about astrology, it's not because it's not part of people's readings. Some readers would use it a lot if they're very experienced with astrology. I'm not, so I don't use it. But that is another dimension that a reader could introduce into a reading.
I've
So-
heard some people say that. They'll pull a pentacle and they'll say, this is Capricorn, Virgo, Earth sign.
Mhm.
And people will hear that too, because they'll know that, oh, my best friend is this, and that's what this issue is. They immediately are looking for those connections.
Okay.
So they just do that regularly. If it's a wand, it's a fire sign.
Mhm.
If it's a pentacle, it's an earth sign. If it's a cup, it's a water sign. And then, whatever other one.
Sword
The
is an air sign.
The air sign, yeah.
Swords.
Because
Right.
swords are air.
Right. So, did you take anything out of
I
this evening?
did, that division of, that you mentioned, the thirds or the, for the majors.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I was going through the numbers and the images and going, okay, that's an
Yeah.
interesting new thing.
What part are you talking about, thirds?
She's talking about
First page.
how in the major suits,
No, where's-
they're divided into, there are 22 majors, but the Fool is a wild card, right? And so, because it's a zero
1
card.
through 7 physical life, 8 through 14.
Yeah,
So
so-
the floor, where we have the
Yeah.
floor.
No, no, we're talking about what the major cards mean and the fact that most people in their lives, and remember now thinking in terms of Jungian symbols of transformation, right? Almost everyone, or most everyone, goes through the first 7. Okay, and we haven't talked about the meanings yet, but most everyone goes through the first 7. But they don't know anything about depth psychology. And so 8 through 14 is about depth psychology. And it may be a parameter that they have no clue about. And when a reader's talking about 8 through 14, these are areas that most people have no experience with. Okay, and then 15 through 21 are metaphysical, they're spiritual. And, maybe they have experience in church with them, and maybe not. You don't know. But thank you.
I like that, that was a new, something like
That's a new
Yeah.
twist, okay?
I guess the lesson learned is that you have to be humble when you read the cards.
Mhm.
You have to accept the truth.
How about you, Stephanie? Did you take something from this evening?
I learned that they weren't mystical.
Mm-hmm.
About a few years ago, my friend and my ex-friend, now my ex-friend, she did a reading on me and said something would happen to my brother. The very next day, a tree almost fell on his job.
Wow.
So that was devastating to me. So I stopped doing the cards until I was taught how to rely on them. Not rely on them, but
No, that's a synchronicity that occurred to your brother. And, it doesn't mean that there's anything mystical about the cards, but note that I'm commenting that there's nothing mystical about the cards, but there is something mysterious about the cards, okay? Because when a reader puts certain ideas in your mind, it's a total mystery to them and to you what is going to happen with that information in your unconscious, okay? And so that's a mystery, but it's not mystical. There's nothing magic about it. We know about it from depth psychology, right? Okay, Kelly, what about you?
Whatever does. I just kind of feel like I
Really
should, I was kind
penetrating.
of coming into this not really knowing anything, and I'm still really, really confused. But it's going to be better next time.
I'm with
Like
you.
how like you were reading them and everybody just kind of said, oh, and you pulled it out, and I didn't know what the heck.
Well, that's because we haven't gone through the meanings yet of the cards, and you know, you might be advantaged by getting the Rachel Pollack book and reading through that, or any book, but it just happens that Rachel Pollack's book does use the Rider-Waite deck, and so
What
there.
book is that? Is that what it's for?
That's this book. So this book by Rachel Pollack, 78 Degrees of
Some of them
Wisdom.
with nice pictures of her, it's just as fun.
Yeah, she has the pictures of all the cards in the book, and she gives good descriptions of what they all mean.
Well, it's sort
And-
of like learning chords, you know, you can look at a sheet music and with a guitar and you can play the chords, but you won't sound anything like the people who play it professionally. So
Can you hit
you
me
really
with some
just
more
gotta
up there?
play it a lot, and you know, and then those chords don't mean so much anymore because you realize you break the chords up into these notes and the chords kind of disappear.
Right, okay. Well, so this is a first introduction, right? And so now I've given this to you to take home, right? And so you can go through it and start to slowly get it.
I'm trying to go back to where you referenced and like when you were saying like bond or you know, the suits of the deck or whatever like that, and then going like you know, then going by these and then trying to match it with that because that's what you're basically doing, right?
Right, I'm matching up the dimensions with the suits of the cards. And, you know, obviously, because of my experience with Jungian psychology, I see what the suits are driving at. You know, what are the suits driving at? And you know, gradually you start to see the connections between these dimensions and these cards. And once you see what these cards are driving at, and I mean, I just think of the wands where the guy's going whack, whack, whack with the wand. It's like Friar Tuck at the bridge with Robin Hood, right? And he's got his wand, and they're going whack, whack, whack at each other.
Was that Richard Green, Robin Hood?
Yeah, I mean, but you know
Is
that.
like how you guys refer to it back to like hypnotherapy and things like that, because I've been reading some books on that, you know, how that works and, you know.
Yeah, I'm leery about hypnotherapy per se, but
I do it like just for myself, like for myself in a
And
trance,
also,
trying to learn or
it's
read
like
or something
mantras, you're
like
just
that,
clearing
or
the
retain
slate.
information better that way.
right. But this does have certain features that are like hypnosis. John.
Well, the thing I took away from it was that your reading was just confirming of my discernment this week.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had worked through some things, and some of it was synchronistic because of what I was reading. I was reading Neumann. And so it's very powerful in the sense that I had already come to some of the conclusions that you read me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, okay, my discernment is good,
Right.
and that made me feel good.
Cool.
So it had a
Well,
affirming quality to
yeah.
it.
Many people do go into readings and they come out feeling better. Okay, just the same as they do out of psychotherapy. Right? Because where did this come from? This came from the spontaneous emergence of the need for psychotherapy in Western Europe over 2,000 years, or at least 1,000 years. I mean, however long. I mean, there are legends that cards go back to Egyptian days. You know, these people, Rachel Pollack and Waite, talk about the 15th century, but it's clear that the cards were already established in the 15th century. And, and the Bandinis who had the Popess, they were talking about her in the 12th century. So they go way back, and they obviously connect to lots of people and have done over 1,000 years at least that we can point to. So,
Is she French, by the way?
who?
Is it Popes?
Italian.
Italian.
Yeah, from the Venice area, I believe. Okay. So I guess we'll wrap up, and next week we'll talk about card meanings, and then the following week we'll talk more about more complicated readings and trying to put life into this monster.